Hello everybody and welcome to another video of Strategic Operative. Today we're going to be looking at Star Wars Armada dice, the 3 different variances, and how to use each one of these dice's variances effectively. And we're also going to be looking at what the current meta is within the dice realm for Star Wars Armada. Not necessarily the ships or the squadrons, but the dice that is currently dominating the board right now. So we're going to first go with their black dice, and for clarification, there's your black dice, which is close range, which is close quarters combat. You have your blue dice, which is medium range combat, and then you have your long range red dice, which is long range combat. So we're going to be looking at first black dice, how to effectively use them, what the black dice was intended to be used for, and pretty much if you could sum it up, it's going to be black dice was made for just overload of sheer firepower of hit points. There is no accuracy on the dice. There's 8 sides. One side is a blank. You have your 2 sides that have your critical effect and your hit, and the rest have hit sides. And even if you look at all your upgrades that have to do with black dice, they are made to get very close to the enemy and do some damage. The problem that you run into most times is your black dice ship typically doesn't have a lot of hull or shield that can make it through a round or two of beating. I mean, if you look at ACMs for an example, is probably the best black dice card out there, and each hull zone adjacent to the defending hull zone suffers 1 damage. I mean, APTs is another really good one. Expanded launchers is awesome as well. If you're going, anti-squad, flechette torpedoes, wide area barrage is always good. In some cases, you could use rapid reload. External racks is just a good cheap way to get an extra 2 black dice, especially if you're running ordnance experts. Why not at that point? And the reason why I have the Raider brought up is because the Raider is really good against squadrons, and with that 2 flak of 2 black dice, there are ways to get this up to 4 or even 5 black dice on a flak. If you're running Agent Callus, if you're running, if you're going to run flechette or external racks, they can do some damage here. But as you see, the really problem is a lot of ships that are really effective with black dice, you have to get in really close and you might not survive the initial attack. Now, there are some Imperial ships that do have some pretty big hull that do have black dice. For an example, the Kuat refit. Nobody is typically going to one-shot that sucker. 11 hull with all the shields on it, and you can pretty much run that to have 5, 6 black dice, but it just doesn't work with the meta right now. Right now, the best thing to do if you're bent on using black dice is to use a bunch of cheap, quick ships that can hold ACMs or APTs or something that is made to just deal damage cards to the opponent really quick, where you can maneuver out of whatever arc is if it's Imperial, getting out of their front arc, if it's Rebel, typically getting out of their side arcs, and just outmaneuvering them and pretty much doing a guerrilla warfare tactic. That's what black dice is. Black dice right now is not made to go one-on-one with just about any ship, because the problem is black dice, there's no accuracy. You can't hit the brace, you can't target any of these other defensive tokens. Pretty much they could redirect it wherever they want. They can cancel the crit. They can, reduce it to half with their brace. Typically, it's really good, in my opinion, against squadrons. But against ships, if you really like black dice, you're going to have to run a lot of ships and be okay losing quite a few ships. Now, for the Rebel side, definitely the 2 ships that come to mind when they're most effective using black die is definitely the MC-30 and the MC-75 Ordnance Cruiser. The MC-30 came out in the second wave of Star Wars Armada, and that was when black dice were at its prime. You had the Gladiator just came out, you have the MC-30 that just dropped out, and all these cards were, I think ACMs just came out with this wave, and possibly I think ATPs were in the core set, but these were starting to be used more because now with certain upgrades, you're able to roll 4, 5, 6 black die out of your side arc from the MC-30, which was great. It was a quick ship. You could get that volley in there, but chances are you're not going to survive, especially if you're running up against an ISD or something bigger. than a small ship. Now for the MC-75, I really love playing with black dice because it's going to survive. There's even ways to equip this where it can roll upwards of 8 black dice and 10 dice out of its front arc. And I'm just going to show you real quick just how effective something like this is. It could potentially one-shot an ISD if you really wanted it to. If you get lucky, you could. And I'm going to show you real quick. So, I mean, we could put some more upgrades on here, but I'm not going to focus. I'm just going to focus on the black die aspect here. So, if you were to put on the MC-35, you would put the external racks, which gives you two black dice on your attack. Of course, you would have to burn the card. Expanded launchers, it's a modification. The battery armament for your front hull zone is increased by 2 black dice. So that's 4 black dice. If you were going to run concentrate fire, that's 5 black dice. Plus, you can be running your 3 black dice in the front. That's 8 black dice. Plus your 2 blue dice, which you could get double accuracy. You're probably going to end up getting just 1, but still, that accuracy is really going to help shut down that brace. And if you have ordnance experts to reroll, that is just really good. You could potentially, if everything worked out in some crazy way, you could one-shot an ISD through the front arc. It's that powerful. Of course, it's a fun play. It's not necessarily a competitive unless you have a support fleet behind it, because you only get to use that one shot. Because then you can't use external racks, but you could still use expanded launchers and still get your 5, 6 out of the front instead of the 8. So I do like black dice. I like the idea of black dice. And I feel that if you can get in on a maneuverable ship, the only reason I like it on the MC-35 is if you radius it in to a spot where you can just bomb the other person and possibly one-shot their capital ship. That's the only actual competitive play I would use with black dice as a whole. Of course, I love doing the Raider build. That's not necessarily competitive. So we're going to go to blue dice. Now, blue dice is a little bit different. It's pretty much down the middle road. There's not a blank on this dice. And overall, let's see if I can find it. Overall, it's just a good dice. It has an accuracy, it has a hit, it has a crit. It's actually really good. Let me see if I can find, oh my goodness. Let's see. There we go, Victory. I was having problems finding him. The Victory is a classic example of using blue dice. It came out with the core set, and right away, blue dice were actually very effective in the game. And here's the reason why. It's from the beginning, the blue dice crit, there were just so many options to use. You could have it offensively, defensively. Some of the more, I guess, the more classical blue things you had. You have leading shots, which was amazing for blue dice. Pretty much all these things help mitigate your other dice. That's what I look at blue dice as. They're really going to help mitigate your other dice. But you also, sometimes people don't like that for blue dice, there's less blue dice than there are black dice. So that's why heavy ion emplacements or high capacity ion turbines really come into play, because although you might not be getting extra dice, you're getting your bang for your buck. Especially looking at the HIE, you may exhaust this card if you do the defender hull zone, and each adjacent hull zone loses 1 shield. It's like ACMs, but it only affects shields. But sometimes on bigger ships, this is more effective. Overload Pulse is another really good blue example here. And blue is just, like I said, it's down the middle, it's medium range. You're going to have more chances to use it than your black dice. You might not see as many critical effects, but you have that accuracy, and there's ways to shut down your opponent. Versus black dice, you're leaving all of the defensive retrofits and you're leaving all the defensive capabilities up to your opponent to choose. Now you're able to, with blue dice, you're able to just hammer things out a little bit more and give them less options. A good example for a rebel ship that's really good in blue dice, in my opinion, is definitely going to be the CR-90 Corvette B. And I mean, that's all blue dice. And it has some really good dice for it only being 39 points. And if you wanted to put, you could put any of the blue ion emplacements in. Even its titles, some of them do deal with blue dice. Personally though, you're going to run into a problem because you don't have the sheer volume. Yes, you're shutting down the other person's tokens, but it's not that much of a dice volley that's crippling your opponent. So the best advice here would be having your blue and your black dice sort of meld together, and there are some ships that do this well. I mean, you have your Raider second variant, which is really good. It has your black die, plus you have mostly blue dice, fishing for that accuracy. You still have your flak of one black die, one blue dice. And you can make this work, especially with the different item placements or different emplacements that you have. You can really outfit almost any ship to run 2 dice variances. That would be my advice if you're going to be running either black or blue, is make sure you have one accompanied by the other, because one by itself is going to be not as effective as what it could be. So now we're going to jump into what I think the meta is right now, and that is red dice. The reason being is red dice is long range. When the game first came out, red dice was not a popular thing. That's because there wasn't really a lot of upgrades to go with it. And let me show you what I mean. We didn't have dual turbo laser turrets. Really, the only thing that we had was enhanced armament, H9 turbo lasers, slave turrets, and that was it, I believe. There was nothing else for red dice, and there was really no point at this time because the meld of blue and black dice worked so well until we saw wave 7 hit, and that was with the Chimera. Really was the final push to say, hey, red dice is coming into play and it's actually competitive, because it had multiple of these slots open to us where we can choose, and then look at what the SSD is coming out with. There are so many things that are going to enhance red dice to where red dice can be played on its own. It has its own accuracy. It has its own chance of getting a double hit, which is like your black die equivalent. You also have a crit. Now, there is no red crit effects as of yet that has hit the game. Could there be? I don't think so. I think the way crits work in this game, I think they like to keep it to close to medium range. I think long range, especially with now how effective long range play is, we're not going to see that happen. And what I want to show you here is some of the best options. We'll actually go with the ISD so I can show you the multiple emplacements we can use and how red dice feed off of each other. So I'm going to show you, so we could use quad turbo laser cannons, and pretty much what that is while attacking, if at least one if one red die face has an accuracy icon, you may add one red die set to an accuracy icon in your attack pool. Now that's pretty cool because you get a free red dice, and that pretty much, if you have an accuracy, well, now you get a double accuracy, and now you can pretty much lock down two defensive tokens. Also, if you're looking at huge ships like a Simoon, or you're going to do the SSD, you're already rolling 4, 5, 6, maybe even 7 red dice out of an arc to begin with. You can also put, if you really wanted to guarantee that crit, you could do the H9 turbo lasers. I love the enhanced armament. I think that you get the biggest bang out of your buck, especially if you're running it on an SSD, or if you're running it on a Rebel variant, just because it works so well with Akabar slashes. But these two cards work together so well because it gives you an extra dice. And another person that is a must if you're running a red die fleet and if your Empire is going to be Director Krennic. Director Krennic's ability is going to work so well with red dice. Red dice is in an awesome spot right now. I don't expect we're going to see a change when these new, especially when the new campaign comes out or when these new expansions come out. I think they're just going to help feed the red dice even more. And my advice is, if you don't have necessarily these cards to run red dice, or if you're a Rebel player who doesn't like using long range red dice for some reason, your best bet is to run swarms of smaller ships running black and a little bit of blue dice. Because even squads now are being affected by long range flax, essentially, especially when you look at the SSD, or if you're looking at Agent Callus. It's really effective. And it's something, I'm excited to see what more they're going to do with the dice variances. I think when Clone Wars comes out, I really think they're going to be more blue dice effect. They're going to be looking more at blue dice range, and pretty much it would make sense for the time period of the Clone Wars, what weapon emplacements they had. But overall, I think for the theatrical play sense, I think they're going to do a lot more blue dice, so we don't have to necessarily worry about a lot more overpowered red dice. But I think each faction they should do, relies more heavily on a specific type of dice. Definitely Empire right now is relying so much on red dice. Even in the meta, just here in Orlando, a lot of Rebel players do use red dice. However, they'll put a little bit of blue in there. Like, for instance, the Clone Wars, I would love to see blue dice. But you guys let me know what your opinion is, if I hit it right on how effective we're supposed to use these dice, and what the meta is near you, just concerning dice-wise.